Okay, so today we're going to look at a few different places in Israel. This is on our geography course. We'll be focusing on Beit Shan and Hatzor, but we'll also look a little bit at Hula and Metula. Hula and Metula. Rhymes. So first we'll start with... What's that?
Put that back, I want to spell it. There, thank you.
Okay. Good.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
I'm not ready.
Wait, just 1 minute.
Okay.
Copy later?
These will be posted online, so you can always get the notes from there. If we have to wait for everybody to get every word, we'll be here all day. Okay, so first we're going to talk about Beit Shan. It is a city in the northern district of Israel. So, if you look at where the Dead Sea is here, you go straight up. Before you get to the Sea of Galilee, you hit Beit Shan. You see the red dot there below the Sea of Galilee? Is it red or orange? Orange, I guess. Looks more red on here. Yeah. So it's located 17 miles south of the Sea of Galilee. And it's situated at the strategic junction of the Herod and Jordan valleys. So if you look on a topical map like this, you can see right here, see Herod Valley. Okay, this valley runs into the Jordan Valley. So it's a very strategic spot for this whole section of Israel. And the fertility of the land and the abundance of water there, that's relative, but for Israel it's a lot. It caused the Jewish sages to say metaphorically, not literally, quote, if the Garden of Eden is in the land of Israel, then its gate is Beit Shan. So it's a beautiful area.
It is.
So they didn't believe that that's where Eden was, but they wanted to express how beautiful the area is. It's no surprise then that the site has been almost continuously settled from the Chalcolithic period to the present. It goes way, way back. It's a beautiful area, but remember, this is also the Middle East. I wouldn't say it's the most beautiful place in the world, but for the Middle East, it's a paradise. Not a lot of choices there, so this is pretty much top of the line. Going back to Canaanite times, Beit Shan was the center of Egyptian rule during the late Bronze period. So you can see here on this timeline, we have early Bronze, middle Bronze, then after that, the late Bronze period. Then came the Iron Age. Monumental stelae with inscriptions from the reigns of Seti I and Ramses II were found there, and they're now in the Rockefeller Museum in Jerusalem. You can tell it's got that Egyptian look to it, eh? Yeah. It also found there was a life-size statue of Ramses III, as well as many other Egyptian inscriptions were found there. At the Roman period, Pompey and the Romans rebuilt Beit Shan in 63 BC, and it was renamed Scythopolis, which basically just means the city of the Scythians. We read about them in Colossians 3:11. You may have wondered what the book of Colossians meant in Colossians 3:11, where it says, where there is neither Greek nor Jew, circumcision nor uncircumcision, barbarian, Scythian, bond nor free, but Christ is all and in all. Well, when it says Scythian there, it's talking about those who inhabited Beit Shan. While we were on this verse, who can tell me how you would respond if a believer says to you, maybe one of your Christian friends or someone that that doesn't believe you need to become a Jew? How would you respond if they said to you, oh, you're not a Jew anymore now that you believe in Jesus? You can read in Colossians 3 that there is neither Jew nor Greek in Jesus. What would you say to them?
It's for salvation.
This is talking about salvation here, isn't it? Mm-hmm. It's talking about salvation. Here's what you say. This is concerning salvation. Because if a slave, it says bond or free. Mm-hmm. If a slave in some other country accepted Yeshua, are they just automatically set free by their masters?
No.
No, they're still a slave, aren't they? There's another verse that says male or female.
Yeah.
Always, have you ever noticed after you're saved, you're still either a man or a woman? So you bring that out to them.
Or an abomination.
What do I feel like?
Yeah, what do I feel like today?
That's right.
I feel like that.
So it's the same with the Jew and the Greek. After they get saved, they are still either a Jew or a non-Jew. So this is relating to salvation and salvation only. Salvation meaning we have committed to follow Yeshua. I'm talking about it in that kind of a context. Mm-hmm. When we come to Him, we are transgressors and sinners. After we come to Him, we still remain male or female, bond or free, Jew or non-Jew. Hopefully, though, after someone comes to Yeshua, they will then start to become Jewish. Mm-hmm. That's the whole idea. When that happens, they'll transform their minds into the mind of Yeshua, who was a Jew. Mm-hmm. Hard to have the mind of a Jew and not be a Jew. Right?
Mm-hmm.
If the Messiah was a Buddhist, I'd say we should all become Buddhists. If he was a Muslim, we should all become a Muslim. Yeshua was a Jew, so we should all become Jews. How simple it is. Yet, how complicated preachers have made it. Mm-hmm. They say, yeah, Jesus was a Jew. You would then say, well then, so I should be a Jew then, right? And they'd say, well, no. What you need to do is become a Christian. You would say, well, why? Was Jesus a Christian? They'd say, yes, he was. You'd be like, no, Christianity didn't even exist then. They'd say, oh, yeah, that's true. But some men decided to start Christianity, and that's what you should follow. You would say, I'll stick to following Yeshua.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be what he was. Back to Beit Shan. It became the capital city of the Decapolis and was the only one on the west side of the Jordan. The city continued to grow and prosper in the Roman and the Byzantine periods until it was destroyed on January 18, 749 by an earthquake. Evidence of this earthquake includes dozens of massive columns that toppled over all in the same direction. Mm-hmm. We're going to be looking at a short clip in a minute, and you'll see some more of these pillars. You'll see they're all laying in the same direction. It's one of the evidences of an earthquake. So I have this short clip we're going to look at of Beit Shan. It's done by a young Israeli couple. They're very cute. I like them more and more as I watch them. They did a great job on this little clip, and I'll show it to you now. It's short. It's only about 10 minutes long. But they did a good... Everything they say in this video is spot on. It is spot on.
We are in Skytopolis, the Beit Shan, the ancient Beit Shan. It's gonna be really cool. This city is the biggest of the Decapolis, the 10 cities that the Romans built to showcase their luxurious life, their Roman luxurious life. So here's what they did, right? So they said, come to these cities, the 10 cities, Beit Shan being the largest, Skytopolis. They're saying, look at our life. We've got everything here. Take example from us. We are the modern civilization. We are the edge of technology, the edge of architecture, the edge of entertainment, and truly they were, but not for long.
In the 1st century BC, the Romans built 10 cities in the Middle East region and called them the Decapolis. Today, the remains of only 2 of them are within the borders of Israel. Skytopolis was the greatest of the 10 cities. And due to the great earthquake that destroyed it, it laid in ruins untouched until it was excavated.
In the 8th century AD, there was a huge earthquake here that leveled the whole city.
But the story of this city does not start with the Romans. It goes much further back in time.
This place goes back all the way to 45th century BC. That's right, almost 6,000-year-old caves were found here that had remains of the early human life. Adam and Eve time? Possibly. There is so much history here. Even Egyptians were here. 15th century BC, they found an administrative house for the Egyptian Empire. Yeah, the Pharaoh was here. That's right.
This behind me is one of the most important art pieces from the Canaanite time that were found here in Israel. It shows a fight between a lion and a dog. Dog resembles the keeper of a city, and the lion resembles a plague, something that harms the city. And as you see, the dog is biting the lion, trying to protect the people from the plague.
I think a cat would have done a better job. Like Fifi.
Really?
And then the Canaanites were here, right? And during the Canaanite reign, what happened? The Israelites came to the land of Israel. They conquered the land, but it says that Manasseh failed to conquer the city of Beit Shan, this place right here.
We read about Beit Shan in the scriptures as the place where King Saul's body, along with his sons, was hung by the Philistines when they were defeated. If we look over there, this is the Gilboa mountain where the war happened, and it's not that far at all. And they would have brought the bodies and hung them here as a sign of dishonor to the king and his sons. And then the Israelites came and took those bodies to bury them properly. So this is where it would have happened, in this area right here.
Later, the city was conquered by King David. In fact, he burned the entire place. Nothing but char. But then, King Solomon, his son, rebuilt it. But history does not end there. The Egyptians took this place back with the fall of King Rehoboam, but not for long, because the Assyrians completely destroyed to the ground. For 3 centuries, this place laid in ruins, until in the 3rd century BC, the Greeks rebuilt it and renamed the city to Scythopolis. But the history again does not end there, because a century later, the Hasmoneans, the Jewish rebellion force, destroys it one more time. So then a century later, what did the Romans do? They said, forget this place. It's ruined. It's still here. The ruins from that time, they're still here. The Romans say, we're going to rebuild Scythopolis, but not up here. We're going to build it down there and going to make it the greatest city in the region. This is an incredible preservation of the Roman bathhouse. Absolutely spectacular. Look at this. So this is how it worked. Outside of the bathhouse, they would have those chimneys where they would burn the wood, and hot air would blow through under the floor, in between those little pillars, and that hot air would heat up the water that would be above the floor of those pillars. So today we just see the pillars. There's no floor, but you can imagine a layer of floor here that would be really hot and heat up the water. That's your bathhouse. What a technology.
Wow.
What?
You better sing harder.
You know what we should do? One of us will go up there with a camera, one of us will stay here, and we'll speak or sing really loud, and we'll see if you can hear it up there. Because they say they're built in such a way, I can like hear my echo, that
Yeah.
you can hear the voice travel everywhere, right?
Right.
Okay, you want to sing?
No way.
All right.
I'll go up there then.
We got people coming to see the show.
Welcome to the empty
Yes!
Yeah, we got one.
Yes!
I had one bravo. One bravo.
Good job, high five. Beit location is a great location, and at the same time, it's a very bad location. Why is that? Well, great location because it's right by the Jordan River, and it's also at the point of the Jezreel Valley. So for commuting to the Mediterranean, this is a great place. This is a connecting place. But it is placed on top of the Dead Sea transform. That makes it at a very high risk of earthquakes, and that's exactly what happened in the 8th century. Oh my goodness, what is over there? I feel like there's an animal coming out on us. But something obviously hangs out here. Or somebody. What's going on in my life?
I think they can keep excavating here down and down, right?
Probably. Yeah, there looks like there's a door there or a window.
Whoa,
Atalfim.
a bat.
I'm out. Bye.
Bats. I love bats. Whoa.
restaurant in Beit Shan. It's different than the Middle Eastern restaurants we've been at because the salads have different taste and they're a bit different with a twist, which is pretty cool. And we have some interesting things here. So we have some, I'm thinking this is hot pepper, tahini, baba ganoush, and some eggplant. We have some sauteed salad. We have some corn with, I'm thinking that's mayo.
So you see, this is the Israeli way of eating Middle Eastern. You share the plates. You got a little bit of everything and you share them. It's a great feeling about it. It's nice. So these are the famous Israeli shipudim. They are the shish kebabs, I don't know what you call them, but they have this marination to them that is so unique. You won't find it anywhere else in the world. It is absolutely delicious. So if you're in a Jewish Israeli area in a restaurant where they serve these, you gotta get them from chicken. It's spectacular. If you're in an Arab village, get from lamb. Their specialty is lamb. We hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we enjoyed this food. No, that's too mean.
Don't worry, I'll deal with them.
So that's a cute, they're a cute couple, aren't they?
Yeah.
I got a sneaky feeling that they're believers. I've watched like 3 of their videos. They do a really good job on them. They don't say that they're believers or anything, but the way they talk, the way they present themselves, I'm pretty sure they're born again. So now we will talk about Hatzor. Well, tourists don't usually visit Hatzor much. That's because they can see many of the same kinds of things at Megiddo, like a huge water system, an Israelite gate, and the foundations of a palace. Given the association with Armageddon, Megiddo has taken precedence. But thanks to new excavations at Hatzor, this may soon change, especially if the archaeologists discover the city archive. There has to be an archive there somewhere. At Mari, up on the Euphrates, a collection of almost 25,000 clay cuneiform documents turned up, dating clear back to the 18th century BC. According to the Biblical Archaeology Review, about 20 of those mentioned Hatzor. This is a little bit from the article in the Biblical in Bar. We just call it Bar for short. We read of ambassadors coming and going from Hatzor, and of caravans laden with gold, silver, textiles, and various other commodities, traveling to and from the city. One tablet informs us that Babylon stationed officials in Hatzor. 2 messengers from Babylon, who have long since resided at Hatzor, with 1 man from Hatzor as their escort, are crossing to Babylon. That's what it actually said on the tablets. Another tablet records several shipments of tin. Tin was very important back then. That's what they used to make bronze. That's why they call it the Bronze Age. If Mari kept all its documents, then surely Hatzor kept theirs too. Excavating the Canaanite royal palace in recent years, archaeologists have found some things. They found a few documents, but they're still looking for that payload, that real big find of all these documents. Now, we used to say, when we went on tours, we used to say Hatzor is also the land's largest Canaanite city. But if you remember, the last newsletter, reminds me, by the way, the newsletters are done. They're sitting on the column. Are they still on the column out there, Nancy?
No, but they are right there on the wall.
On the wall. Okay, so make sure you get a newsletter. So we used to say it was the biggest one, but in the newsletter, either the last newsletter or the previous one, I think it was, I talked about a new find in Israel where they found this massive Canaanite city. You guys remember reading that? Okay. So Hatzor is not the biggest one anymore. It used to be. There was this Canaanite city that I'm talking about. It was found near the new Israeli town of Harish. This is Harish. It's a very new city there in Israel. It's a new neighborhood. So this Canaanite city was found near there. And this picture here is just a very small part of the Canaanite city that was found. And this ancient Canaanite city is massive. So to give you kind of an idea of the difference of size between Hatzor and this Canaanite city, Hatzor is about 160 to 180 acres. Whereas this city is about 700 acres. It's massive. And we'll talk more about this town in the coming teachings. So Hatzor isn't the biggest city anymore, but it's still the second biggest city. Its upper tell includes 20 acres, which is not massive, but from the 18th to the 13th centuries, Hatzor had a lower city of about 160 acres. So basically, on this picture, this is the upper city. All this other part out here, that's the lower city. It was huge, a marvel to archaeologists. When you compare it to Megiddo, a lot of people go to Israel, they go to Megiddo. They say, oh, it's so big, it's such a big place. Megiddo is 18 acres above and 12 below. Just down, that includes this part on the bottom on the right. And they talk about how big it is. It's nothing compared to even Hatzor. During the late Bronze Age, Hatzor ranked with the great city-states then found in Mycenaean Greece, the Hittite Empire. Remember we watched a video on the Hittites. And Egypt. So this was on par with some of their greatest cities. And those cities were in frequent contact with each other, sharing in material culture and literature. They were all very close. So what does that matter to us? Well, if we went to war against the Canaanites, we weren't really just going to war against them. We're also going to war with all their buddies, because they'd send reinforcements. The size and the might of Hatzor are reflected even in the scriptures, in the Tanakh, in Joshua 11:10. And it says, formerly it was the head of all those kingdoms. Head in Hebrew is what? How do you say that?
Rosh.
Rosh. Remember we do Rosh Hashanah, right? The head of the year. So this was the head of all those cities. How many of you here have heard of Hatzor before today? Nobody. And it was the head of all the cities. You see how much stuff you miss in churches, and even many Messianic synagogues don't talk about this. And he said it was the head of all the cities. So obviously it wasn't the biggest city, right? Because we just looked at that other city. It was bigger than this one. So it was probably the most important of those cities. The word there in Hebrew is rosh, so it can mean a variety of things, probably meaning the most important of these cities. But why did Hatzor achieve such eminence? Its location. If we stand on the upper tell, looking north and east, we can see part of the answer. It had a great vantage point, stretching away from Hatzor to the north to the Naphtali Ridge. There's the Naphtali Ridge over here. See where Hatzor is? There's the Naphtali Ridge. To the northeast, we see Mount Hermon. You guys know Mount Hermon, Hermon? rising 9,146 feet above sea level.
Wow.
That is twice as big as Mount Washington here in Washington State.
Where's Mount Washington?
Right here, it's right down the road.
It's near North Bend.
Yeah, by North Bend.
Oh,
Very
outside?
close. Yeah. Twice as high. And Mount Washington ain't no joke. That's somebody up on top of Mount Washington. It's up there. And it's only less than half the height of Mount Hermon. There's snow almost every year on Mount Hermon. Back to Hatzor. On the dimmer horizon to the east, beyond the canyon of the Upper Jordan, are the volcanic cones of the Golan Heights. So there's Golan Heights over there. Oh, it even shows Mount Hermon on the top there. Finally, on a line between us and Mount Hermon, we see a large stretch of low-slung country. This became the Hula Swamp, or the Hula Lake. It was then drained by Israel in the 1950s, but it's now been refilled. Suppose we were alive in the time of the First Testament, before the Romans built bridges in the land. And we want to reach Damascus, or the cities of the Euphrates. Encountering a river like the Upper Jordan, we have only two options. We either ford it, or we skirt its headwaters. If you don't know what ford means, there's two ways to understand. There's natural fords, and there's man-made fords. This is a man-made ford. This isn't in Israel, but this is an example. So they make it to where it's a shallow place in the river, and they make a ford so they can cross over. This is a natural ford. So it's a low place in the river where people can cross. Neither of those are in Israel, it's just an example. So the Jordan River lays in this deep canyon, difficult to cross. Ages ago, however, the volcanoes on the Golan Heights, they spewed out lava. And this flowed then into the riverbed. And at a certain point near Hatzor, it cooled and formed a basalt barrier. The river water flowing south encountered this barrier. It then backed up, and that's what made Hula Lake. Or swamp. Most people call it a swamp. 3 times I have tried to find this swamp, but it's evaded me up till now. This time when we're going over, I am committed to do the walk that's necessary to find it. We've seen the outskirts of it before, but this time I want to get right to it. I'll show you where we went last time. So we made it all the way up to here, and then there's a little roundabout here, went clear down here. And we got to here, and we didn't know what else to do, so we just turned around and left. But now I know that they have free parking here. And then you go from this free parking place, you have to, as far as we can tell, you might have to walk to come out to here, and then here's the lake right here. There is some kind of a road, but I don't know if we're allowed to go on it or not. But whatever I got to do, I'm going to at least get down to here so I can see the swamp. So we'll be doing that on this tour as well. Good. And then after that, we are going to go to Metula. I haven't been to Metula since I was a kid. From Metula, you can see both Lebanon and Syria. So this is Metula, this little town. This is the border. It is right on the border. That's Lebanon. That's Syria.
Kind of scary.
Kind of scary. They are a tough town. Ready for anything at any time. Of all the places in Israel, that's the place I don't think I'd want to live. So you can see on this map, if you look all the way to the top, it is the furthermost point that you can be to the north. You can't go any further than that. Back to Hatzor. 4-room houses were fairly common in ancient Israel, but Hatzor has a really good example of one. This popular building style would be better known as a pillared house. We don't call them, 4 bedrooms. We don't do it that way. We call it a pillared house. We don't go by the numbers, and besides, we do the numbers differently anyways if you do say that. I was explaining last night that in Israel, if you have 3 bedrooms, and it also has a living room and a dining room and a kitchen, we call that a 6-room place. Over here you'd say it's like 3 bedrooms, 2 bath, but we don't do that. We count the main rooms. And it's the same in India. You do the same thing in India. You count the rooms. You don't count the bedrooms. You add them all together. Just a culture thing. Found throughout Israel from the time of the settlement of the Israelites, the number of rooms in the dwelling may vary, but always it is characterized by a row or 2 of pillars separating the central court from the side room. You see these pillars here over on the right? Not those on the left. We'll talk about those in a minute. But this one here on the right, you see those 3 pillars. That's what I'm talking about in these homes. They call it a pillared house because of that. This type of building, better known as an Israelite tripartite pillared building, has been found in numerous sites throughout the country. The primary function of this building, though, was for housing the royal cavalry. That's where they kept the horses. Kept the horses. And maybe they could also make it where the people could stay there too. But that's what it was meant for.
So that's a stable.
Yeah. A century after Solomon's time, the Israelites built a massive shaft about 40 meters deep into the tell. So that's about 160 feet. Straight down into the tell. And they reached the water table below. The 19-meter vertical shaft was about 15 meters square and ended at a wide sloping step tunnel that led 25 more meters down. I would not like to go down that. But this system is very similar to those at Megiddo as well as Gibeon. Now, one of the most exciting things at Hatzor is they have recently unearthed an ancient palace there. This is a Canaanite palace. It is an exciting reconstruction for anyone interested in the ancient world. This is the only instance that we have in the land of Israel of a large late bronze palace that is partly restored and also accessible. We're going to go there, we're going to get to see this. This is pretty amazing when you think about it. You see where it says throne room right there? Mm-hmm. That's where the king sat. Wow. But they weren't actually kings, right? What were they? Governors. Exactly. So that's where he sat. And they back then, the Canaanites, a lot of their palaces also included the temple, their temple. So what you're looking at right here in the front, that's their altar. So you're looking at like a 6,000-year-old structure here. Mm. It's pretty amazing. Mm-hmm. And then they had these orthostats right here on the sides. I'll show you. An orthostat is a slab of stone. So you had these orthostats. This would have been magnificent in its time. These are the orthostats. Then you got the pillar bases. They've reconstructed a little bit of it, but a lot of those is the original, like the orthostats. So you can see the actual throne room of the governor. You can also see the basalt orthostats that they use as part of the base. So that's what orthostat means. It's an upright stone or slab. Those things you see at Stonehenge, the technical word for those is orthostat. Also sounds like a comfortable shoe.
Or a doctor's procedure.
This was also found there near the palace. Yeah, it's a graven image, but you know, it still is an amazing work of art. Pretty impressive. Also found there was a seated figure, which was probably Baal, from the small sanctuary in Hatzor's lower city. The head had been cut off, probably by the Israelites, and since then they restored it. But note the full disc on the chest, topped by a crescent. You know, those full discs that represented their sun worship, right? And then pretty soon they started moving them upwards towards their head. So when you'll see a lot of the old ones, it's a round that comes right out of their head. Then the Christians took that, tilted it, and it became the halo. That's where the halo came from.
Oh, brother.
It's all from sun worship. So topped by a crescent, the mask fitting the face was found nearby. The figure is seated in a position to receive offerings. So they come, they do their sacrifices on the altar, and then whatever they had for offerings for the priests, they go and they put it on this thing so the priests can have their food and so forth. So it's pretty interesting stuff. Hazor has a lot more to give us, and it's important that we know about it as the digs continue there. I hope you enjoyed the teaching.